So scope creep multiplies. Every department demands their own customizations. And that's where we're with the legacy platforms that are now saying you have a deadline of end of 26 or end of 27, and we need to move you to our latest and greatest SaaS platform. Yeah, we've customized the heck out of your incumbent solution. Not just the product owners, but the system integrators then add their own flavors on top of it. So it becomes really complicated to undo this ball of yarn. And then your technical debt sort of accumulates. What that means is how much money do you have to pay to keep your old technologies running while you're looking to modernize, while you're doing all these great things, strategizing, putting out RFPs that are fantastic, but you still need to make sure that your older systems still work because implementation and go live doesn't happen right away. You have to spend some time getting to the end goal. All of these factors, and then you layer on top of that bad project management, lack of strategy, lack of leadership. You need governance. You need an executive sponsor that can make decisions. You need a committee that can help make decisions and synthesize data and information. And you need to treat this as if this was a once in a lifetime project for you. It's no different than building a new courthouse, a city building, police station. You have to be very, very meticulous about how you deploy these projects so there are no cost overruns, timeline delays, or user rejection. You imagine doing all of this work and then the users don't like it. They don't know how to use it. They don't adopt to the system, and now you have shadow systems. People using older systems do the business while the new system sits there and maybe does one or two processes. And this is pretty prevalent in things like permit management, right? You can't put a stop to issuing permits. You can't put a stop to taking in applications while you're implementing a new system. So the mistake that's usually made is that you rush through and implement a new system and keep using the old system. And then you don't know where the cutoff is, where you have to bring over older permits or applications in process into the new system. Um, all of this can be avoided, and that's just an example that happens in every function. All of that can be avoided with effective, detailed project planning and execution. So the other great debate that's been raging, and we've done some live streams and sessions on this, is monolithic versus composable. And composable is another way of saying best of breed, meaning your function gets the best product that's out there um, for your department or your function. And then all of these best of breed solutions sort of work together to produce the results that you need. The traditional model is monolithic ERP, which means one single vendor sells you everything, and a lot of them do it well, right? The biggest products in the world, SAP, CGI's offerings, Tyler Tech, they claim that they can do it well. And if deployed well, yes, that is true. Again, comes down to how do you do implementation? Did you really scope this well up front so that the software provider knows what your needs are? And a lot of times, what happens is if you haven't thought through your requirements and your future state processes and how you want this organization to run post implementation with the new product, mid implementation, you will start unearthing requirements that were not socialized or publicized in the RFP. So the vendor has no idea. So the pricing is off. And now you're talking change orders. Yes, these are SaaS products for the most part, but that doesn't mean that they're completely malleable or that I mean, they may be, but there's always the cost associated with implementing something that was not priced in the RFP and therefore in the contract. So, um, yeah, you might have single vendor lock in, but a lot of these single vendors do it well. Um, but the problem with that is that you land in this situation where now you have an all or nothing upgrade, right? Your product that you've been using is being sunset, and the software provider says you have a deadline, sign here, or we're going to pull the plug. Not the best way of doing business, but it is what they have to do to keep up with the market and technology. They can't keep supporting 20 plus year old technologies across the board. So there's pros and cons to both sides. And then obviously, customizations become a nightmare, 5 to 10 year implementations. On the composable side, the promise is you can have the best product for your organization and function. Uh, but also you can land in this situation where where you're doing continuous deployment, which is not a bad thing. Again, if you've managed it, if you have a plan, if you have desired outcomes and timelines and budgets for it, it can be done. But the promise is that with APIs and modern ways of connecting data, you can make it work. And the promising thing also is 90-day cycles, right? We're starting to see different ways of procuring product where it isn't the traditional 1 year long selection process, and then a 3 year implementation. People are starting to get creative about how do you, especially in best of breed and composable, can we get something that works? But that doesn't mean that you don't do the due diligence upfront. In fact, in a composable scenario, you have to do more due diligence because you want to make sure that all of these products will work together. Promises during the sales process are one thing. You need to have the vendors show you that they can do it, which isn't always straightforward because sometimes these products have not worked with another product. In theory, they should be um, interfaceable, but the proof is in the pudding. All right, I'm going to take a question here real quick. How can agencies ensure accountability and risk mitigation if they move away from exhaustive requirements lists in the RFP? It's a good question. So let's talk about what exhaustive lists mean. Back in the day when I started in this industry, um, we had 10,000 line item requirements. It was a badge of honor to have multiple thousands of requirements for a specific project. And you needed to do that, right? You had to specifically ask a vendor what code it's written on, what kind of tables, what sort of technical infrastructure is behind the scenes on the software, because no two products were similar. Today we're in the realm of almost commoditization of ERP products. It's not 100%, but most of them are similar. The magic is in the back end, right? What cloud you're using, what kind of technologies are happening in the back end. But if you don't do robust requirements definition, uh, you run the risk of not holding the vendors accountable for what the product actually does when it's implemented. But backing out from that, the modern way of doing things is outcomes based, right? You don't need the 10,000 rank requirements. You don't need to ask the vendors what kind of code they've written this on because it's could be a combination. And honestly, who cares today? You don't want to ask them if they can run AP and cut purchase orders. Every product does it. So the requirements set that we're putting out for our clients is significantly reduced. It's outcome based, and therefore you need to tie the contracts and your negotiations and your implementation to these outcomes that are defined up front. So it doesn't always have to be exhaustive, but it has to be there. You need a requirements list, and it needs to be well thought out. The process doesn't change, right? the the set of requirements that go out in your RFP will change. They will become less voluminous and more impactful, but the process of getting there is the same. You have to do business process reviews, analysis, and really think through how the product is going to transform your organization in the future. Thank you for that question, Megan. So what's happening with AI? I mean, there's several. Again, the stories are plentiful, right? There's success stories and failure stories on AI. When ChatGPT was first released, when it hit the market, it became mainstream. I think it's sort of a switch happened there where people went from being uh, worried about new tech to being excited about new tech, right? The speed at which AI can do things is very promising. And so there were a lot of failed projects early on because people just jumped into it without thinking about data hygiene, internal processes, policies, what that means for their organization as a whole. And it didn't go anywhere. I think the next wave was where people were like, I see the promise, but I don't want to touch it. Legal said no, IT said no. So we're not going to touch it. And then there were forward-thinking sort of early adopter agencies that actually took a thoughtful approach to this. And a few good examples are City of Las Vegas is is doing natural language queries that replace SQL queries and reports, um, where the analysts can now talk to the data. It's natural language reporting. Miami-Dade County has AI-powered invoice processing, which, by the way, we do in-house too. We've built some really cool in-house automations to run our business. And then the state of Utah has a microservices architecture that's enabling department-specific AI tools while maintaining enterprise-wide data consistency. And that is the key. How do you maintain data consistency and hygiene across the board while you let departments do AI deployments? So lots of great things around that to think about. And again, when it comes to ERP deployments or RFPs or selections or implementation processes, how does this show up in your RFP? How does this show up into the document that the vendors and the software providers respond to? And what sort of requirements are you going to put around AI? Because every major software provider out there uh, is AI first now. You look at their marketing, and it's all AI first, AI enabled agents, this, that, and the other. And it goes beyond just having chatbots and natural language reporting. Um, Most companies are baking in AI into their products. On the back end, they're using AI to create these products, and the user community will then slowly adopt and take advantage of these technologies. Again, if as long as you're ready, these are some really cool things to look into. So the next paradigm shift I want to talk about is reporting. Again, back in the day, in the 1900s, we did we had to really nail down what the current reports are. Clients expected you to replicate existing reports for, compliance reasons or internal reasons. They have certain reporting that they need to make sure appears on the new system. And, modern products can do it all. So the paradigm shift here is reporting it doesn't always mean massive sets of PDF documents. Yeah, you might need them for your council or commission meetings or board meetings, but for the daily user, for the daily decision maker, if they want a specific set of data that will help them make a decision or run their department better, they shouldn't have to wait for 48 hours at least or months to get a specific report because older technologies are being used.